welcome to a brand new episode of Wrestling with Siblings. I'm your host, Araceli, and this is my co-host, Armando.
Hi guys, I'm Armando, and welcome to Wrestling with Siblings.
All right, let's get started with the Monday Night Raw review. The very first match is Apollo Cruz versus MVP for the United States Championship. Basically, winner take all.
Yeah, keep in mind MVP is claiming that he is the new United States Champion because Apollo Cruz did not show up at Extreme Rules.
Yes. Now, Apollo Cruz coming back from an injury, and he was gone for, I believe, 2 to 3 weeks, and he's back, very impressive. He's dominating the majority of this match, and obviously going right into this match, he's at a disadvantage. Why? MVP has Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley with him at ringside, so that immediately puts anybody at a disadvantage.
But you got to give credit to Apollo Cruz. He did not get distracted, like you said, by Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley. He was focused on the prize 100%, and he was waiting for MVP to make a mistake to capitalize.
Yes, he knew exactly what was at stake, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to go in there. I know what I'm going up against. I know who MVP is, and I'm definitely ready for somebody like MVP, and that's exactly what he did, and he proved that throughout this match. And I got to admit, I'm very impressed with what Apollo Cruz has been doing the last couple of months. I feel like ever since he's held the United States Championship, he's had a wave of bad luck, but it's also brought out the best of Apollo Cruz.
Yeah, he wants to prove himself, and especially with guys like MVP that played all these mind games with them and told them, look, if you don't join me, this is what's going to happen. But good job for Apollo Cruz, and what does he do? He ends up getting a very, very important win on his step to continue being the United States Champion.
Obviously, MVP's upset. He doesn't really like the way the match ended, but also keep in mind, ever since MVP came back, I didn't see very much going for him, and I like this angle that they've given him. I like him being a manager. I think he's really great at it, particularly because he has the mic skills for it as well. But partnering him with somebody like Bobby Lashley and somebody like Shelton Benjamin, I think he could really do a lot for both their careers.
I have to agree with you on that one. I really like the addition to Shelton Benjamin. I think he's going to bring something different, something new to this whole team that they already have. And them as a faction, they're looking pretty solid. I mean, if I was someone in the WWE roster, I wouldn't mess with these guys because they look like they want to go out there and hurt people.
Yes, the hurt business is real, and they're trying to take it to a whole nother level. But let's move on to Kevin Owens with the Kevin Owens Show with their special guest star, Ruby Riot.
Very, very interesting. You know, in Kevin Owens' show, there's always a lot of interesting things that are happening. And what's one of those things, Ruby Riot being on the show. And not only that, but Kevin Owens wants to question her, what's up with you and Liv?
Yes. So, as we know, Ruby Riot had been on a losing streak since February. And that's the first thing Kevin Owens touches bases on. He's like, you know what? You got very emotional after your win against Peyton last week. Explain that. She's like, I had not won. And I think a part of that was because of the whole Liv Morgan situation. She was kind of affected by that. She didn't expect to see the change in Liv Morgan like she saw it. And that affected Ruby Riot's performance. But in this case, Kevin Owens is like, well, you know what? I do have somebody that I want to bring out. And none other than Liv Morgan comes out, makes an appearance on the Kevin Owens Show.
Yeah, because it looked like Liv Morgan past couple of weeks didn't want anything to do with Ruby Riot, but things were going to settle out in the middle of the ring with Kevin Owens.
Yes, and Liv is like, all right, I'm willing to listen to Ruby. And this is when Ruby starts to say, you know, you changed. I was so used to us being a group, and you know, they pretty much traveled together, they stayed together all the time, and they were basically best friends. And she's like, look at the tattoo. We both have the tattoo. All three of us have the tattoo of when we debuted. And she starts to take Liv through memory lane. And at some point, you can kind of tell that Liv is like, she just wants the friendship. She just wants to keep me there. But then the Iconics come out. And the Iconics are like, well, you know what? We are better than you guys. We are the better team. You guys will never get to be together in a tag team form and all this stuff. And so that's when Liv is like, well, you know what? We can prove it to you. We are still better. And, you know, when you cause a riot, things like this happen. So Ruby and Liv become friends again.
Yeah, and obviously we can see what the Iconics were trying to do, what they were trying to mess with Liv Morgan's friendship and Ruby Riot. They were trying to damage it, even more if it's already damaged, which I don't think so. It was just a matter of Ruby Riot being injured and not being part of the Riot Squad for quite some time.
And Liv said it. No one started to Riot better than us, and that lets you know what, they're ready for a fight, and they go right after the Iconics, and I think that caught the Iconics by surprise because, as you said, they were trying to get inside of the head of Ruby Riot and Liv Morgan, and they saw that vulnerable, we can target their friendship, and that'll put us at an advantage. So therefore, this leads into Ruby Riot and Liv Morgan, the Riot Squad, versus the Iconics.
Yeah, and I think the Iconics, like you said, went into this match thinking like, okay, they're not going to function well together from the get-go, and little did they know that once a team, always a team, it's always going to function no matter what. You always have that chemistry with that person, even if that person, you haven't been with that person in a while. And I think that's what they kind of underestimated a little bit.
I do agree with you on that one. I think they did underestimate Ruby and Liv, but they also went in with the strategy because they were like, we're going to target Ruby Riot. We're not going to let her tag Liv Morgan because the moment that she does tag Liv, it's over. And that's exactly what happened. They tried to keep Ruby Riot as far away from Liv as they could. And then once Ruby got that tag in, Liv comes in and Liv was able to get the win for her team. Very impressed by Liv Morgan now coming back after being away from TV for about a month.
And also for Ruby Riot, this is also a huge win. Why? Because it's to boost the confidence. We've been seeing for the past couple of weeks that she's been on a winning streak. So that's pretty good, and let's see where that takes her.
And I'm going to be honest with you right now, if there's a team that I can see dethroning Bayley and Sasha, it's the Riot Squad. I think they have the chemistry. I think they've been together long enough at this point, and I think they're both so good together. They work together. They have that chemistry, and I think this is the team that I can see taking down Sasha Banks and Bayley.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Other than the Iconics, I really don't see any other team, like you said, than Liv and Ruby Riot.
All right, let's get into Drew McIntyre, who basically comes out. He starts talking about how Randy Orton was pretty much handed everything, how he really didn't have to work for all the accolades that he's had to have the career that he has had up until this point.
Yeah, I see where Drew McIntyre is coming from, just because he's pretty much saying that Randy is son of Cowboy Bob Orton, and he surrounded himself with all these people like Triple H, Ric Flair, Evolution, and that McIntyre didn't have it.
Yes, and so then Randy comes out with Ric Flair, and he's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, he carved his own path, and he's right. I do believe he took being an Orton and completely transformed it into what he thought was the definition of representing the Orton name. So I really don't blame Randy when he comes out and says, well, yeah, you're right, but at the end of the day, I took Orton and made it what it is today.
Yeah, I agree, and we could agree that Randy Orton is one of the best in the business. And for McIntyre, this is going to be a huge test. This is what's going to put him even more on the map. If someone could dethrone McIntyre, it could be Randy Orton.
100%. There's also another point that Randy makes. He's like, I should have been fired years ago. You're right. They could have had the opportunity to fire me time and time again, but they haven't because I'm more valuable to this company than you are. Now, I don't know how I feel about the choice of words, but I do believe that Randy leaving or potentially Randy getting fired would take a huge hit for the WWE.
Yeah, and not only that, but McIntyre was trying to make it personal. And if you make it personal with Randy, it's like, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. I'm going to like this match. Why? Because they have similar styles. I see a lot of things that are in common. I mean, just the RKO, how quickly Randy Orton executes it, and the Claymore, exactly. McIntyre executes it almost as quickly as Randy Orton. So it's going to be interesting.
There's a lot of similarities between the two, but at SummerSlam, we will get to see who will walk out WWE champion. And trust me, I mean, if there's somebody that can take down Drew McIntyre, it's definitely Randy Orton. Randy Orton is walking in with all the advantages in the world, the experience. Every single match he's been in, he's executed every single move so perfectly. He knows how to get inside the head of his opponent, and he studies every single one of them. So he walks in with an advantage.
And not only that, don't be surprised if Ric Flair is in his corner. And keep in mind, Ric Flair is the dirtiest player in the game, and Randy Orton has learned a couple tactics from him.
Yes, and I know Drew McIntyre is going into this match very confident, but he cannot let his confidence get the best of him, because Randy Orton will capitalize on every single one of those opportunities that he gets.
Yep, definitely have to agree with you on that one. So McIntyre has his work cut out for SummerSlam.
All right, let's move on to Nia Jax. Very, very interesting. For those of you that don't remember, Nia Jax put her hands on Unofficial a few weeks ago, and she basically got fined for it. So he comes out, and I believe his name is Pat, and she's like, you know what, I'm here to own up for what I did. And so she wants to apologize, quote unquote, but she ends up not apologizing. And Pat is like, well, you know what, you're pretty much suspended indefinitely without pay. So we will not be seeing Nia Jax on TV for quite some time. Who knows, maybe if she just apologized, she could have avoided this entire situation.
I agree with you on that. Tough for Nia Jax because she just came back from an injury too, and it was a long injury. She came back. We all thought she was going to hunt for the WWE Women's Raw title. That didn't work out for her, and now she is suspended. So we'll see what that leads up to. And again, bad luck from Nia Jax.
This could only mean one thing, though. She's going to leave, come back, and she's going to come better than ever. We know that. Everybody that leaves always comes back with new hunger, with a new fire, with a new desire. And I think that's what's going to happen with Nia, but we're going to have to wait and see how this storyline plays out.
Hopefully we get to see a different side of Nia, and like you said, with that fire, that hunger of wanting to go and be a champion.
Yes. All right, let's move on to Shelton Benjamin versus Tosawa versus R-Truth for the 24/7 championship. And I believe if Truth comes out victorious, he will win his 36th 24/7 championship. Wow, that is a huge number.
Yeah, very, very impressive by R-Truth. I mean, sounds easy, but it really isn't. Being 24/7 champion, you always have to watch your back.
Yes. I was super impressed by Benjamin and by Tosawa. Obviously, I think Tosawa's new gimmick is very interesting. I think it's something different. I think it's unique. I don't think we've seen it before ever. And I think that's what makes him stand out right now. And I think putting the 24/7 championship on him was brilliant at this point.
Yeah, and Shelton Benjamin, again, tough luck. He got distracted by the Hurt Business, and that actually ended up hurting him, and he ended up losing, which is sucked because I really liked him as 24/7 champion. I think it was a small stepping stone for him to go into something bigger, into maybe like the U.S. title, or, you know, it's just a step for him.
I agree with you. And R-Truth, I mean, that guy, he's just a comedic genius. And aside from that, he's good inside of the ring. We've seen everything he's been able to do inside of the ring. And I think, yeah, it's great to have R-Truth as 24/7 champ because he finds creative ways to keep the storyline going. But I think it's time to finally part ways with the 24/7 championship and let somebody else take control and maybe build a whole new star with the 24/7 championship.
Yeah, make that title more relevant than what it already is. And we feel that that title's meant specifically for R-Truth because he's always winning it and he always finds ways to capitalize. So we'll see.
And aside from that, he's super creative. He's naturally entertaining. So giving him that championship was perfect. But I think 24/7 championship can build new stars, and I think you should use that to your advantage. All right, let's move on to one of probably the most anticipated matches. One I wasn't expecting to see it happen in this match, but it is a first ever. Shayna Baszler versus Sasha Banks.
Yes, I have to agree with you on that. First time ever. Obviously, the excitement right from the get-go because it's Shayna and it's the boss, Sasha Banks.
And this match is happening simply because Sasha and Bayley were doing an interview backstage, and Shayna comes in and she just punch Sasha, pretty much knocks her out. And that's how this match came to be. I honestly wasn't expecting it at Raw, to be completely honest with you, but it's happening and I think it's great. I think Shayna Baszler gave Sasha Banks a fight. I think her biggest advantage was the power, the strength that she had against her, and obviously her size.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. But Sasha, I mean, she is the blueprint. If you're gonna match up with someone, you're gonna match up with Sasha, and she really took it to Shayna Baszler. I mean, the submission game from both of them was just spectacular. One of them going right after each other. It's like they knew their moves right from the get go, and it's like, okay, she's gonna do that. And Sasha just keeps improving each and every single time. She's dominating the women's division with Bayley.
Yeah, she's a standard right now. I completely do agree. She is probably top 3 women's wrestler right now, and I think in order for you to be able to take that top spot, it's going to be hard, and to start somewhere. Shayna started, she dominated Sasha Banks, she gave her a fight, and that alone already proves something. That makes a name for yourself, and Shayna Baszler is on the hunt for the Raw Women's Championship.
If anybody can match that wrestling style of bringing the match to the mat, of doing submission moves, is Sasha Banks. She did it perfectly.
Yes. However, I feel like she wasn't fully ready for someone like Shayna Baszler. Obviously, Shayna Baszler's a submission specialist. She knows exactly what she's doing. She has strength to her advantage at all costs. But it's going to be interesting to see where this leads, because Asuka gets involved in the match. And I do agree with this part, because I feel like you can't have Sasha lose right now, and you can't have Shayna lose right now. I think ending it in a no contest was brilliant. I think it was the perfect ending for it. You're protecting your champion, and you're also protecting your number 1 contender, quote unquote, in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And I think just Shayna Baszler is out there looking for a fight for whoever stands in front of her. She's just going to go out there and destroy them. I think that's Shayna's mentality for every woman in the roster.
Yeah, and she doesn't care who she's going to be going up against, simply because she tells Asuka, you know what, go to SummerSlam, beat Sasha, because I would like to beat you. So at this point, she doesn't care who she has to go through. She's going to go through somebody to get her hands on that championship. However, I think it's too soon for Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, and I do see Sasha being a long-term Raw Women's Champion. I mean, I really don't see anybody in the roster right now, and especially because she's got her best friend, Bayley, that has her back, and vice versa. So they're extremely dangerous, and they're those 2 women that you got to watch out for.
Yes, keep an eye out for them. All right, let's move on to Angelo Dawkins versus Angel Garza.
Angel Garza seems to have the number on the Angelo Dawkins.
Yes, but he's also very cocky and very, very smart. I think he's learned a lot from Andrade and Selena at the same time. I think we've seen that improvement from where he came up to the main roster up until where he is now, and it's only been a few months. He's great. I think his character is definitely fitting of him, and I like his in-ring skills. I mean, I think this guy's going to be great at some point.
Yeah, and it was a chance to really test his skills with D'Angelo Dawkins. I think it was all just to get into the mind games. Like, look, if I beat you in singles competition, I can beat you in a tag team match. So Angel Garza's just been extremely hot. He's been on fire these past couple of weeks, and he's been getting a lot of the victories for Andrade and the team.
He has. So he has a winning streak as of right now. He's really proven himself and really getting his name out there. But you also have to give credit to Dawkins. Dawkins has been more than prepared. He's also been super cocky and super confident in who he is and in his team. And he believes his team is going to walk out as SummerSlam still Raw Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Angel Garza got the win because Angelo Dawkins got distracted because Montez Ford passed out outside the ring. But still, that doesn't take the victory away from Angel Garza. He was able to capitalize on that distraction.
And as Armando and I have said, as the good heels that we are, as people like to say, a win is a win. He won. It doesn't matter how he won. He won. Given the circumstances, he took advantage of it, and he was like, you know what, this is my moment. If I don't capitalize now, I may not win it for my team.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, this is a great way to get into the Tag Team Champions head.
Yes. All right. Speaking of Tag Team Champions, Montez Ford versus Andrade again. Andrade walks in super fired up. we've seen a new desire, a new fire in Andrade ever since he's been partnered with Garza, and ever since they've been on the same page. I think at first he was a little iffy. I think he didn't trust him at first because he's been so used to it just being him and Zelina Vega, and they've kind of just had the chemistry. And now adding somebody else, he was a little like, I don't know how I feel about this just yet. But once he clicked with Garza, he clicked, and they are a hell of a team.
Yeah, and not only that, but also, this is how smart Andrade is. He realized that Montez Ford had passed out outside of the ring, and when he comes inside, he decides to compete. So what does Andrade do? He immediately goes on the attack, and he tries to take advantage of that. Again, with fair rules, I think it's legal. I mean, I don't blame Andrade for going and trying to win the match. Like I said, a win is a win.
Well, no, because Montez Ford decided he wanted to continue with the match. He did get analyzed by WWE personnel, so they cleared him to compete. He said he was fine. So at this point, it's not Andrade's fault what happens during the match. Now, yes, Andrade capitalized on that, and Andrade realized what was going on. Montez Ford, if he wasn't feeling well, I think he should have never been wrestling the way he was. High flying, running around here and there, throwing himself at Andrade, and I think that's where he passed out again, because he was in the middle of doing that thing with the ropes, and he did it, and once again passes out.
Yeah, and it sucks because Montez Ford, like you said, was already getting that momentum after Andrade was dominating. Montez Ford found that split second and take advantage and be like, you know what, I'm going to try to capitalize here, build some momentum. And as he was building momentum, what happens? He passes out in the middle of the ring, and what happens? The match ends in a no contest.
Yes, and Andrade was a little confused. You can see him go, and he's like, what happened? And you can see him trying to get close to Montez Ford, but they didn't let him do it. So no contest. At this point, anything goes at SummerSlam, but we might not even know if this match will be happening at SummerSlam, because right after the match, we end up finding out by Bianca Belair that Montez Ford had been poisoned, and the first thing she does is blame Zelina Vega. Trust me, I don't blame her for not trusting Zelina or for thinking Zelina did something like this. However, Zelina's like, I didn't do it. Personally, I don't think Zelina did. No, to be honest,
I believe Zelina that she didn't do it. No matter what, she didn't do it. But I think Bianca Belair just got caught up in the moment.
See, I don't think she would go that far. Yes, she's brilliant. Yes, she's the brains of the entire operation. Yes, she finds ways to her advantage, but I don't think she would go as far as poisoning Montez Ford, really. But yet again, I don't blame Bianca. I completely understand her reasoning behind it. She knows what Zelina Vega is capable of. She knows who she is, and she knows she is the brain of this entire operation.
So Andrade and Angel Garza, we could say, have an advantage going into that SummerSlam match, just because we don't know how Montez Ford is going to be, if he's going to be 100% or not.
Yes, so if Andrade and Garza can still stay on the same page, we might see new Raw Tag Team Champions, and I'm completely behind Garza and Andrade becoming the new champions. All right, let's move on to Seth and Murphy. They basically come out, and to make a really long story short, they start picking on Tom Phillips. Why? Because Tom Phillips took Dominik's side last week on Raw, and Seth Rollins is not happy about it. He's like, you know what? If you're going to criticize somebody, you don't criticize me. You should be part of my team. You should be on the right side of history, not on the wrong side. And he was blaming Tom Phillips for expressing his opinion.
Yeah, and who decides to stand up for Tom Phillips? Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe was like, you know what? If you have a problem, you're going to deal with me. But one thing, Seth Rollins didn't realize that he has unfinished business with Samoa Joe. So Samoa Joe is the perfect opportunity to capitalize and be like, look, I am here to defend Tom Phillips, and if you want to throw hands, I'm right here.
And Armando and I have talked about this off camera. We feel like Samoa Joe is the guy that can take down Seth Rollins. We really do believe that in a lot of different ways, and this is the first step. He's standing up to Seth Rollins, and you can tell Seth Rollins at first wasn't scared, but once he saw that Joe was serious, he was like, okay, well, all right, we'll just stay away from Joe for now. And they kind of just left Tom alone. But I think Samoa Joe knew he was just kind of plotting Seth Rollins, because Dominik comes out and he just starts hammering at Seth Rollins and Murphy.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think Samoa Joe was in it the whole time, and he was just setting up Seth Rollins for Dominik to come in and strike with that candlestick. And what does Seth Rollins do? He ends up accepting Dominik's challenge to wrestle at SummerSlam. From the get-go, I see Dominik with the advantage. Why? Because Seth Rollins has messed with a lot of people. Humberto Carrillo, Alistair, now Samoa Joe. You name it, he's pretty much messed with half of the roster. So don't be surprised if they all come out there and get a little bit of retribution on Seth.
Let's just say Dominik has a lot of friends. He's made a lot of friends within the short period of time that he's been on TV and that he's been feuding with Seth Rollins. And I do agree. I think he does have an advantage, but also he's at a disadvantage because we've never seen him wrestle. We don't know what he can bring to the table, but we may all be surprised. I think Dominik has a very good chance. I think, obviously, everything we've seen with Lesnar up until this point, I think he's going to do very well in his first match against Seth Rollins.
Yeah, and what better way to do it with someone to prove yourself than with Seth Rollins? I mean, it's all a perfect scenario for Dominik. And if it was me, I'd be motivated because it's like, wow, it's Seth Rollins. It's the future of this company. And, I mean, I would have been extremely motivated if they would put me with someone like Seth Rollins. It would be my first match in a debut.
Oh, yeah. So he's definitely going to be taken care of. I'm not really concerned. I think the match is going to be great. I think he's going to do great. It's just a matter of, can he hang with somebody like Seth Rollins? And if he can, he's going to do amazing in his career. And you can already tell he's not afraid to go out there and express himself and be who he is. It's just going to be interesting to see how he wrestles and if he wants to wrestle with the mask, which I would think it's pointless at this point because everybody's seen his face. Everybody knows who he is. But that's going to be interesting going in 3 weeks out into SummerSlam.
And not only that, is he going to have his own style of wrestling? Is he going to want to have a mixture of his dad's wrestling and his style? So we'll see. I'm just curious to see and excited to see what he's going to bring to the table. What's going to be something new, something fresh. And best of luck for Dominik. We'll see how it goes.
I'll tell you one thing for sure. It's either going to be good or it's going to be bad. But one thing I can pretty much guarantee is he's a Mysterio. So he pretty much has an advantage going into this match. Again, best of luck to Dominik Mysterio. I can guarantee you this is going to be a match you don't want to miss.
I think his first few minutes are going to be in shock, holy crap, I'm here. And then I think once he breaks loose, then I think that's when we're really going to start seeing the Dominik. But again, I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table and what he's going to offer to everybody.
Yes, and like I said, this is a match you don't want to miss. Trust me, it's going to be great. All right, let's get into, pretty much that was the main event, but let's get into something very interesting, something new that they're trying on Raw. I still don't know how I feel about it. I see where they're trying to go with it, but I'm just not fully there yet. It's called Raw Underground, and Shane McMahon is pretty much in charge of it.
I thought it was great. I like the concept that they want, where if you have an issue with someone, if you want to fight, if you're not booked, you could just take it to Raw Underground and let all your fury out, let all your anger out, and show yourself there. It's an extra opportunity for everybody to showcase themselves. Although I would really like to see the women get into it in Raw Underground too.
Basically, the difference is there's no rules, which means there's no storylines, which means you just have an issue with somebody, you just go and you settle it right then and there. But I don't know how that would potentially work. I mean, it's great because, let's say somebody like Randy and McIntyre, let's say they don't want to end it at SummerSlam. They could just take it to Raw Underground and we could see an even better match than what we're going to see at SummerSlam. Somebody like Dolph, I think this is made for Dolph Ziggler. I think he would belong in a place like Raw Underground. But I also feel like Raw Underground can make a whole lot of new stars.
Yeah.
I'd like to see women there as well.
And not only that, this is perfect also for the Hurt Business. Why? Because what do? They like hurting people. So what better scenario for them than Raw? underground.
Yes, it's too soon to tell though, kind of where they're gonna go, how good it's going to be. I wanna give it a chance for it to really prove itself, and I guess only time will tell. But yeah, that's all we have for you guys on this episode of Wrestling with Siblings. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Become a part of the Siblings today. And for those of you that do not know what WWS stands for, what does WWS stand for?
Wrestling with Siblings. Thank you guys so much, and see you guys next time.